Okay, this lesson is it's just like we did yesterday, except now I'm going to have the two functions in different forms. Yesterday, or actually today, we did that so both were in tables or both were graphs or both were equations. Now they're going to be a little different. So Patrick and Leonard are brothers who each have money saved. Sorry, the amount of money or Y dollars that each brother has left in savings after X weeks is a linear function. Patrick's function is represented by a table, and Leonard's function is represented by an equation. Okay? So, the first thing I'm going to say on the next slide is to put them in two forms that work for you. If you want to take this and make a table, and some of you that might work. Some of you said, you know what, I'll make a table and I'll make sure to put 0 and 5 and 15 and 20 in. So let me see if I can do that real fast. We'll see if that'll work. Okay. So if I do that for Leonard, so that you can, because maybe that'll work for some of you. Goodness, we gotta shrink some. There we go. And this would be money. So look, these are the same as they were before. And then if you're going to compare it by a table, make sure to pick the same ones that were here, because a lot of you did that when we looked at tables before. Okay, so I'm going to pick 0, 5, 15, and 20 because that's what this table had. All right, if I plug 0 in to this equation, I'll get 250. 10 times 0 is 0. 250 minus 0 is 250. If I plug in 5, I get 200. If I plug in 50, I get 100. And if you're struggling on this calculation, I can help you with that. I'm kind of skipping the part where I'm showing all my work. Okay, now for some of you, you can see one of the things I'm going to have you talk about is the starting point. Okay, so 0 to 250, this is your starting point. Now for Patrick, if we were going to write an equation like we did with Leonard, then this would be our B. Right here would be our B, our y-intercept. So that would be our B. Okay, and then we would have to find our slope. So to find your slope, you would do change in y, so 200 minus 175. I'm just picking 2. And that's going to be over 0. So 200 minus 175 over 0 minus 5. And that's going to give me, let's see, 25 over negative 5, which equals negative 5 is my slope. So this keeps doing this to me today. My equation for Patrick would be y equals, I found my slope, negative 5x plus 200. And the 200 again is from right here. So it is your choice how you want to compare these. But I'm going to ask you to compare the starting points. And if you find that in the table, you can do that here. And the rates. Okay, for the rates, you could talk about that, you know, he was going down faster. I definitely think the slope's got to come in there at some point. Okay, especially because they didn't start off at the same thing. When we talked about them today, remember they both started at 0, 0. So you definitely want to look at the slope because they didn't start at the same place. Okay, the starting point for Patrick is 200. The starting point for Leonard is 250. So who started out with more money? Leonard. Okay, when we check their rate, which we said is slope, this is Patrick's rate. It's the number in front of the x. Okay, now we're going to look at the same thing here for Leonard. When you look at Leonard's, it's negative 10x. So Patrick is losing $5 per week, and Leonard's losing $10 per week. Okay, so I said put them in the same form. And then when I said, it'll say use a verbal description to compare the two functions. So you're going to try and do two things. Talk about the starting point. So I'm going to start with that. Leonard started with $250 while Patrick started with $200. This means Leonard started with $50 more. Okay, next I'm going to look at the rates, and I talked about that on the previous slide. Rates are slope. Leonard is losing money. I know he's losing because the slope was negative, so it's decreasing at a rate of $10 per week, and Patrick is losing at a rate of $5 per week. Leonard is losing money faster. Who's faster? Okay, so when I say write a verbal description to compare the two functions, I want you to talk about the starting point and I want you to talk about the rate. Okay, I'm going to do one more. In this one, I have Rachel, actually took this from a previous problem, and I have Tyler. Look at the starting points. In her graph, she's at 0.6. At Tyler, it's 0.3. Okay, so Rachel's starting point is right here, and Tyler's is here. And again, it's just being able to see it in different forms. So who started closer? At time 0, Tyler was only 3 meters away. Rachel at time 0 was 6 meters away, so Tyler was closer. Then we're going to look at the rates. Okay, when I do Tyler's rate, I'm going to make sure that I subtract 9 minus 3 over, it's hard for me to do the over part, so 9 minus 3 over 1 minus 0. And that gives me 6 over 1, or 6 meters per second. Okay, for Rachel, you can count it here if you want to do the points and write that this is 1, 10 and do the differences like you did before. That's the way it seems most of you go. So this point over here is 1, 10. And then when I do the slope work, sorry, I'm going to write that up here, I'm going to do 10 minus 6. Please, some of you are still doing the x's over the y's. Over 1 minus 0. That gives me a slope of 10 minus 6 is 4, over 1 minus 0 is 1, 4 meters per second. Okay, so we have what we need. Who started closer? Well, Tyler started 3 meters away. Rachel started 6 meters away. So Tyler started closer. Who's moving faster? Well, Tyler's moving 6 meters every second, while Rachel is only moving 4 meters per second. So when we go to here and I say use a verbal description, we're going to talk about two things. So we're going to start with the starting point. Tyler started only 3 meters away from home, while Rachel started 6 meters away. Tyler is closer to home when they start. So I want to make sure that you say what their starting points are and then tell me what they mean. So there's kind of a two-part there. Then talk about their rates. Rachel is moving 4 meters per second and Tyler is moving 6 meters per second. This means Tyler is going faster than Rachel. Okay, so it's very similar to what we did today. I didn't focus on the starting points as much in the previous lesson, so make sure that and that's because we always start at 0, 0. Make sure to talk about the comparison. Make sure to use your numbers in your answers so you're very specific about what's happening. And we will work on problems with all of this in class tomorrow.